Jim, what was that, the live stream's on it,
We're trying to figure
Right.
it out. So we're
It's not-
recording it on a disc. We'll have it uploaded
It's
tomorrow
not working,
to
right?
YouTube. But
Recording in progress.
Well, good evening. We'll call to order tonight's regular in-person meeting for the Vicksburg Brownfield Board. We apologize to all those that might be trying to get into the YouTube. Connection is not working tonight, so it will be up on the web tomorrow. We have a call to order, have done such. We'll take attendance, please, Mr. Mallory.
Yes, sir. Board Member DeBruin.
Present.
Board Member Merrill,
Here.
Board Member Reister,
Here.
Board Member Keller,
Here.
Member Wagner,
Here.
Board Member Holmes. Here. Board Member Goss.
Here.
Chairperson Frisbee.
Here. And
And-
Trustee Olson was excused from the meetings. He
Yes.
advised me he wouldn't be here earlier.
Yes, sir.
We'll have an agenda. We have an agenda in front of us. Any corrections by staff or any additions?
No, but we will inform the board, we are looking at a meeting March 21st at 6 PM as well. And at the March 21st meeting will be minutes from May of 2021 as well as tonight's meeting.
Thank you. So we have an agenda in front of us. Everyone has an opportunity to comment on them or change them, additions, or we'd look for a motion of approval.
So moved. I'll support.
We're getting a lot of feedback. Motion by Trustee Keller, seconded by Trustee Wagner. I believe we can do a voice call. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We have an agenda in front of us. This time we have an opportunity for citizens' comments for agenda and non-agenda items. If there's anyone, well, we don't have anybody in the waiting, do we?
No, there's just staff on the Zoom, so no one waiting electronically to speak.
All right. Having no minutes in front of us, we have next is the 101, 103 East Prairie application, update, and presentation. And we have on our remote viewing, Mr. Jared Balka and the Vicksburg Land Company with us. Would we like to go to Jared first?
Correct. Jared is a partner with Warner Norcross out of Grand Rapids, handles a lot of the village of Vicksburg, if it does with economic development and including our Brownfield Fund. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jared.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to attend virtually from my lovely vehicle this evening. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm going to give a just kind of brief overview of the request. And again, this is a preview of what's to come for you with a formal request. And I believe the applicant is in attendance and can give a formal presentation. But the proposal for this particular project is a request for Brownfield tax increment financing reimbursement. The total eligible activities are about $572,000. This would be for the redevelopment of 101 and 103 East Prairie. I think everybody's probably familiar with Mackenzie's Bakery. That would be occupying a good portion, well, all of 103 and a portion of 101. And the proposed project is to be done in a couple phases. Obviously, everybody's familiar with the phase one. Phase two would include additional build out of 101, which could potentially be for expansion of the bakery. And the upper floors to be converted to a residential or hospitality use. The proposed request is going to be for a total of 572 approximately thousand of tax increment financing reimbursement for brownfield eligible activities associated mainly with the demolition, lead, and asbestos abatement, and then some phase one due diligence items that are about $19,000. That does include about a $67,000 contingency, and the applicant can speak more towards what they anticipate in terms of actual eligible request that would come before the council is a request for a 5-year Commercial Rehabilitation Act property tax abatement. Members may be familiar, some members may be familiar, this is a similar request to what was done for the 343 West Prairie property. That abatement was requested for that particular project. So there is precedent for the village supporting those prior requests. The current request, based on current projections, the first phase would be about a $700,000 investment. With a conclusion of the second phase, they're estimating a total of about $2.8 million total overall investment. Given the current incremental increases in taxable value, they're estimating, based on a 25-year reimbursement, which wouldn't fully pay off with $572,000, but reserving the last 5 years for the local Brownfield revolving fund capture. They are estimating about, I believe, 8 full-time jobs. And again, I will let the applicant speak more to the specifics of the project, but I guess in summary, this is a Brownfield tax increment financing request. It is not a request for any support through the local Brownfield revolving fund. I like to call this the self-fulfilling incentive. If they build it and generate taxable value increase, they will benefit through tax increment financing reimbursement for the term that the Brownfield Authority would support. So coming before you in the coming weeks would be a formal request for the Brownfield plan submission and support for that with a recommendation to the full council. And if the authority supported that request, it would go to the full council for a vote in tandem with the tax abatement request. That's kind of a good overall summary of that. I'm happy to fill in any blanks. And I'm also happy to circle back after the applicant provides a project overview to answer any clarification questions.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Malcolm right now, or can wait till after the presentation? So with that,
Hi, thanks. Okay. Does it work? Is it on? It's on. Okay. All right. Hi. Thanks for having us and allowing us to present our application. And as Jared already outlined what we're basically doing, but it's 101 and 103 East Prairie. And we're super excited to be doing our first phase of this, which happens to be the 150th anniversary of the village. And also that we're about to get our historic designation from the National Park Service as being a National Historic District. We should get the final word in April. So it's super exciting. We are thrilled to be renovating this beautiful old building, both of them, into something wonderful and continue the vibrancy, the growth that's happening in downtown Vicksburg. So I don't know if you've all been keeping up with our Facebook pages or anything, but yeah, there's a rendering there of what will be Mackenzie's Bakery very soon. It looks like we'll be having our opening events and ribbon cuttings and things like that in early April, and actually be open by mid-April. Tomorrow we'll know for sure, so I haven't wanted to announce it for sure until tomorrow. We have some final words from construction folks, but anyway, yeah, Mackenzie's Bakery will be the first part of this project, and as Jared said, construction of this one piece is about $700,000, and then we have another like 125 or so in equipment. So we're investing a lot in this bakery. It's going to be stunning. And then our plans for 101, currently there's a, as you can see from the rendering, there's an opening that has been cut out between the two buildings, and there'll be a doorway that you can open or close. So Mackenzie's will just be 103, but if there are big events or we know there's going to be a lot of people, we can open up that door and then use 101 that will not have been renovated, but we can use it as overflow or, you know, for events and that kind of thing. And we do now have shared bathrooms. So instead of putting a men's and a women's bathroom in each building, we now have 2 bathrooms that are used for both buildings. So you can come in from either building. So now we can use 101, although we haven't fully renovated, we do have compliant bathrooms for that space as well. So it'll be the Prairie Run Artist Residence Gallery. So soon enough, as soon as the construction guys get out, we will be putting up our gallery items, and we have a grand piano in there, and we can envision lots of great community events in there. So that'll be the first phase, and then down the road, yes, we want to do the upstairs, 103 into probably 2 apartments of sorts, and then the 101 building, you can see historical remnants of 6 small units up there. So like Jared said, we don't have all the architectural drawings and everything done yet, but we anticipate either apartments or hospitality like a boutique hotel or maybe short-term rentals, who knows. So we're still pondering what that could be. So those are the plans. And I'm happy to answer questions after Lisa Phillips, who's our environmental specialist, who's done the brownfield work for us and the environmental stuff. So I'm going to have her present the more details of what exactly we're asking for with this brownfield TIF application. So thank you.
Thank you again for having us here, and Jackie and Jared both said about everything I think that's important to say, but we'll go forward from here. Jim, next slide. So I think that a lot of you know the buildings are historic in nature, and they were both constructed in the late or to mid 1880s. 101 was the D&G, both buildings were the D&G grocery store near the very beginning. 101 was the famous DeBoer's dress shop, and then Unique Furnishings later on, and it closed in 2016. 103, after the grocery store, was a drugstore, then the famous Dorsley Sweet Shop, which I love seeing the remnants of in the historic village, and then Brass Rings Sweet Shop, and it closed in 2000. Both the upper levels had been historically residential. One part of it had been used for commercial purposes like printing way back when, but mostly residential, and they've been, 101's been vacant since at least 2000, and the other one since 2016. So the planned mixed-use redevelopment, the facade improvements are complete, and you can see that 103 Mackenzie's Bakery is going to be on the first level and opening really soon. Jackie described the shared hallway with restrooms between 101 and 103, the 2 buildings. And she described the second phase, what the commercial would be. I think Mackenzie's is going to expand in there, but that's my opinion. I think it's going to be extremely popular. But who knows? You know, like Jackie said, there's the Prairie, the artist residency in the interim, and then the upper levels refurbished, as she mentioned. So, next slide. So as far as brownfield eligibility goes, it's always very important to make sure that it's eligible, and it is. It's eligible through it being functionally obsolete. That means that the building, it was constructed, it's so old, it needs so much work to use it for its intended use. New ceilings for fire rating is the big one, but the assessor in his assessment mentioned the stairways, the headroom, you know, all these different things. And so we have the documentation as required from the assessor about it being functionally obsolete. We are not basing the brownfield plan on it being historic, but it is also it's something that makes it eligible, and that designation is in progress. So I just mentioned it here because it's kind of an added plus, but it's not what we're basing it on. So the eligible cost, as Jared mentioned, the owner due diligence, there was a phase 1, no environmental concerns found other than the lead and asbestos, and the hazardous building materials inspections are part of that environmental owner due diligence. So most of it comes in the demolition and the lead and asbestos abatement. And I know that in talking with Jackie and the construction folks, that with the historic designation, it really did add a lot of cost to this project because of having to have the fire rating, but also keeping the old ceiling. I mean, you have to take the ceiling down and you have to put it back up. And that involved then necessitating lead abatement and things like that. So there's still a little bit more lead and asbestos sampling to do in areas that aren't under construction right now, but some of that's all been done, of course, on every place that work's being done, and that will open up in the downstairs. And then the brownfield plan preparation and implementation are eligible activities, and then of course there's the administration time for the village and the local, and then the 5 years going to the local revolving brownfield fund. This is a little bit hard to see, but you'll see this in the plan when you look at it. This is what we refer to as Table 1, the eligible activities schedule and cost. You can see the cost of the Phase 1 and the lead and asbestos surveys are estimated at $19,616. I don't remember the exact amount right now, but probably about $8,000 has been spent, with another 10 or so going to in the future lead and asbestos sampling that will need to be done before the work is constructed upstairs. Then the demolition and the lead and asbestos abatement, those estimates are for the entire project, with the contingency there on all of the eligible activities that have not been expended so far, and brownfield plan preparation, implementation cost. So this table doesn't include the cost for administration and for the LBRF. That'll be on the next table. But this is the cost. This is the cost that the developer will be paying themselves. So the specifics are the private investment for the entire project is estimated at $2.8 million. Mackenzie's is to open in April of this year. The plan is to begin tax capture in 5 years. There will be the commercial abatement for the first 5 years, and then this would come in. That is statutorily allowed in Act 381 to delay for up to 5 years, so we're requesting that full 5 years. We're only asking for local tax capture, not school tax capture, but there are some pre-approved activities statutorily under the law that you don't have to, you can automatically capture school taxes for, and those will be shown on the next table, what we can do there. Currently, in 2021, which is the latest data we have, the base year assessed value is almost $100,000, and it's estimated by 2027, when most of the build out is complete, and probably sooner, because I think that a lot of it is really to do with the Mackenzie's Bakery. The estimated value will increase to about $414,000. It seems like not very much compared to the private investment that's made, but that's not terribly unusual. There's a lot of work to be done, and that's one reason for a brownfield plan, because there's a big gap. There's a lot of extra expenses that go into this.
This is for both sides, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's correct. Both sides and both phases. So this is hard to see, but this will be, and I'll just describe it to you so that when you look at the plan, you can understand a little bit more what it means. There's a couple other tables in there that sort of help you get to the cost. And the first set of columns, and I have it here, but it's the estimated tax revenue from both school and local taxes throughout the years. And you can see over on the right-hand side, the year 1, 2, 3. Over on the left-hand side, I think it's cut off a little bit on the screen, but gives the exact year starting in 2027. And that's okay. And then so that gives it total per year, and then a cumulative value on all of that. And then the next set of columns there are the reimbursement for administrative expenses. Sorry, I'm trying to read it. Reimbursement for administrative expenses, and so that's cumulative, and that would be only with local tax capture. Then the next set is whenever you capture anything from the state school taxes, there's a percentage that goes to the state Brownfield Redevelopment Fund. And so that just talks about what goes there. It's just easy to show it that way, and it is an administrative thing that will need to be done every year to send those taxes into the state. And then the fourth set of columns says reimbursement to developer. So the first set is the school taxes, and that's the things that are eligible, predetermined eligible to use school taxes for. And then the orange columns that follow that is the local taxes, and then the other ones are total and cumulative of what the tax capture would be. And you can see from the bottom, I can't read that number, but I remember it was 300 and some thousand, and have it in here. But it's not estimated that the developer would be reimbursed for all of its eligible activities, and they're fully aware of that. And then the last is the capture to the LBRF. So there'll be some early capture from the school taxes that you're eligible to capture up to the amount of those due diligence activities. So it's the 19,616. And so that will come in early on, and then at the very end, the last 5 years will be full tax, 5 full years of tax capture to the LBRF, to the village fund. Can we go, well, we don't have to, but on table 1, I meant to point it out, but where it had all the different eligible activities, it does say afterwards whether it's local or eligible for local or state tax capture. And it's just a simple thing to look at to be able to see.
Is it the next?
No, it's back a little ways, and it's, yep, right there.
Okay.
So you can see that column in the center there says tax capture revenue source, where state tax capture is statutorily authorized. It says state and local. Otherwise, the demolition and the lead and asbestos abatement activities are local only. Yeah, nope, I think we can go back. One of the things that's not really mentioned in this presentation is that the tax capture, I believe that the DDA, and this is something that Jared and Jim will talk to you about, but I believe the DDA has some tax capture capability. So as part of the Brownfield plan, it will necessitate that the DDA will be requested that the DDA ask to waive its ability for the tax capture in favor of the Brownfield plan.
And that'll be scheduled to go this March 14th in front of the Downtown Development Authority Board. So.
And then we can go on. Really, it's questions. One of the things that people often have questions about, and I know that most of you have been through it before, but what exactly is tax increment financing? And if you have any questions about that, I also brought the presentation back from 2016, I think, that Mike Gurney of the State Environmental Department and I gave back then, that kind of shows some slides, so that we pull those out if we need a refresher on what that tax increment financing is. But I think that, you know, in general, it's fair to say that the developer pays for everything, and that increment of taxes from what it is now to what it is then for that time period for the eligible activities can be paid back. And so if they don't add that increment, they will get nothing back. And of course, if they don't pay the money first, they get nothing back. And it's only on that increment. Then when the time period's over, everything goes back to, and it gets put back on the rolls fully, and that'll be a great thing.
Lisa, if I can, and Jared will correct me if I don't say this fully. One difference between this proposed plan as we sit now and 343 is the developer is going to be the person reimbursed through the capture of the money. Where 343, if you remember, as part of that incentive to have that developed, we're paying back our fund because we reimburse the developer up front out of our fund, and now we're capturing back, paying ourselves. So that is a little bit different on that, where the developer is somewhat taking more on this case, and we appreciate that.
Any questions?
Well, Ms. Phillips, I would ask that you make available to us the same discussion points on the taxable TIF fund when we have the presentation to the council next time.
Okay.
Just for clarity, let the residents know, hear it again, that, you know.
Yeah, that sounds great. And what I can do then is take the same presentation and maybe actually put some of those slides right in there about the tax increment.
Right.
Sounds
That
good.
would be appreciated, definitely.
We have a copy of that too. We'll go ahead this week and put that up on the website, the full PowerPoint that was provided at the previous meeting.
Right.
So
Is
we
it
can.
going to be big enough to read? Because I literally can't read any of that.
Yeah, on a computer, it would be like if someone's reading it on the computer or their phone, and then with our screen share here connected to Zoom, I can keep bringing it up, but eventually it'll impact Zoom.
Right.
And what we'll do at both the DDA meeting and then the Brownfield meeting of the 21st is we'll supply the council with a hard copy
That's what I
of the
was-
PowerPoint.
Thank you. I would really appreciate that.
So we will get a copy of the presentation you just supplied, so we'll have an opportunity to look at some of the numbers and how they play out before the meeting.
That, and I'm sure that a copy of the full Brownfield plan with all the details in it will be made available to you one way or another. In any way I can help in doing that, I'm happy to do that.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
One thing I would ask is, Jared, if you can summarize also the process. I know we have notification of the other taxing jurisdictions that has to take place, and
Yeah, we'll put together a copy, a full final copy of the Brownfield plan. The development team is gonna be sending one over without the draft watermark on it. We'll get that circulated with copies of the proposed resolutions, and we'll get those circulated well in advance of that meeting, so everybody can have time to sort through and come up with any questions ahead of time.
So this is unique in the sense it's different from 343. I was asked this question this morning, so it will not include any of our brownfield funds as they exist now.
That's correct. It doesn't involve a brownfield loan to the developer. The developer will be privately funding the project without a brownfield loan. So any reimbursement in the future, instead of going to reimburse the authority for the loan, will go to the developer.
Right. So then that makes it easier for the existing or the past expenditures you've already incurred, right? So what you've already done to date will still roll up into what you're asking for, but you're not, I get it. Yeah, yeah, you know, and my question was about existing cost to date, how do you cover it? But if it's not requesting out of our existing funds, then I understand the principle behind that.
Yeah, I think if I heard that correct, I think there are probably some costs they've already incurred that would be part of the request. But yeah, none of that would be coming from the revolving fund. But as I think Lisa pointed out in the presentation in those charts, this project would be contributing to that fund in the last 5 years that I've captured.
Right.
I think it's also, and obviously Lisa's involved in this quite a bit as Jared, for a municipality our size, it's a very unique economic development opportunity that we have this established. And this, if it proceeds forward with the approval from the Brownfield DDA and ultimately the council, would be the third such plan that we've put together here in the village to, you know, as well as Turning Leaf was a second plan that I think sustainability and longevity only benefits the village.
I'd like to make a comment. I have been with people from Portage and Kalamazoo, and they have been very excited about Mackenzie's being out here and asking me, when can we come out? So I think that it's going to be very, very beneficial for Vicksburg.
Yes, indeed.
Jared, I have a question for you. In realizing the uniqueness of this, we've discussed it at some length, where it's different, where it's not involving a revolving brownfield account. I'm just curious, when we're celebrating the 150th year of this village, and so it's fair to say we're dated, we're a little old, we got some tired buildings. And I'm just curious from your vantage point, in looking at what we're being asked to consider, is there any cause for concern, or is there anything additional you can share with us that maybe this sets a precedent for, in realizing that other building owners may come forth and ask for something similar for the other buildings, whether it's pro or con? I'm just curious what your perspective is on that the Brownfield Commission can take into an account for possibly any future asks that maybe come before us.
this size of investment, you know, I think that this is a fair ask. You know, you as a non-core community have a limited toolbox that you're able to use to support development. So, you know, being flexible and using the tools that you have available, you know, shows that you guys are willing to play ball. And I mean, what's been presented, I think, is a fair ask in comparison to, you know, other communities. So I mean, there's nothing here that that alarms me at all, given what's requested.
Any further questions for either Mr. Malka or Ms. Phillips? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa. Thanks for the presentation.
I'd like to pass along staff's gratitude and thanks for Mr. Belka. I mean, through the weekend, I know he was involved in family obligations, but still took time to answer my texts at all times throughout it. So thank you, Jared, as always. Appreciate all you do for the village and our staff.
No problem at all. That's a nicer way of Jim saying that I'm playing single parent this week, and I was shuffling a kid around. So thanks everybody for the flexibility.
Thank you, Mr. Belka. I appreciate your time.
And we understand that those father responsibilities continue, so no one here is offended if you click off.
No, not at all.
Well, I appreciate the flexibility. Plus, I'm a little sick anyway, so I probably wouldn't want to sneeze on anybody. I think the last time I was on, I had COVID, so it's not going to
Yep.
All right,
appreciate everybody.
Thank you very much. So that was an excellent presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. And I must say that regardless of what direction it goes, it looks tremendous right now the way it sits. So thank you for your investment in this community.
Very exciting.
One thing, if I can add separate, I just wanted to inform the board at the next meeting, not only we anticipate this action item, but as well action items, if there are any amendments to our current fiscal year budget, as well as our proposed 22-23 fiscal year budget as it relates to the Brownfield. So we can check all those boxes. And we'll send out proper noticing and everything, but that will be scheduled for March 21st at 6 p.m. right in this building.
Thank you. So we'll move on to the village manager report, village updates, infrastructure, audit results, Brownfield meeting of 21-22.
Correct. We just kind of went backwards with the budget amendments and fiscal year budget. This is our first meeting of this calendar year, and wanted to report that once again the village had a comment-free audit. And we'll go into more detail. It won't take long, but more detail in March. But about $25,000 was added to the Brownfield redevelopment on some of those captures, and we'll go into detail next month on that. As far as the audit results, we committed and assigned quite a bit of money. The unrestricted reserve fund is sitting at the most conservative calculations in the 70th percentile, with overall financial liquid availability of about 120 some percent. So pretty continuing to project good fiscal responsibility. On the infrastructure project, the members who are also members of the council are well aware, but other members, construction, you might have seen some of the heavy equipment being placed down by the lift station on Washington Street, and all weather dependent. We anticipate within the next 15 days that project could resume to complete from Michigan Avenue down to the lift station, and ultimately then replacing a water main section on there by the Speedway. So that's going well, and we're right on track with the Oswald Park project as well. But I'd be happy to answer any questions since this is the first time we've met this calendar year, if there are any.
I do have a question. On Main Street, or not Main, I'm sorry, Michigan, in that section between Prairie and Washington, is that going to be resurfaced?
It will be. It's part, there's a few, both projects and non-project roads that we have contracts with Reeve Riley, that being one of them.
Great.
Will be redone all together at once. So Michigan, Main Street between Washington heading south to, help me out, Julie, the next street to the south is South Street or Park, but it goes one block on Main Street to
It's
the
Maple,
south even,
isn't
then
it?
Kalamazoo from Washington to Prairie will be redone as well. It could be Maple, but it goes one block to the south. It's basically where we stopped 2 years ago on Main
It's
Street.
Washington, Maple.
All three will be done this
Yeah.
spring.
Yep, yep, yep.
Washington, Maple.
Maple, yeah.
Is more
So it'll
south.
be down to Maple where the other pavement ended, or,
All right, thank you very much.
yeah.
Thank you, Jim. So we'll wrap it up, get down to members' comments. I'll start with Mr. DeBruin, Member DeBruin,
I had no comments.
Member Julie,
I'm just glad this is happening and these old buildings are getting fixed up.
Member Reister.
I'm just very excited about, especially in talking with people outside of Vicksburg and the excitement over Mackenzie's, and hopefully that other buildings will follow, and hopefully we can help them to do that. But I think it's all good for us, and I'm really pleased with what you're doing there, so thank you.
Member Goss.
No comments.
Member Holmes.
I'm not real good at math, but I'll try to look at it from this perspective. The building's worth $100,000 today. You folks want to invest $2.8 million into it. That will have a taxable value of $414,000. Thank you. Thank you. Because the thing that I consistently hear in the community is that there's excitement for what's going on here, a lot of energy and excitement, but there's also the concern of what we may become. And I love the fact that when people get involved, because then they're part of that process. But to see what you're doing in this community, I think is exceptional and is exciting, and people should understand when they look at that investment, $2.8 million to have a building worth $400,000. I wish you would come and work on my house, and then I'd be as happy, but thank you again. We appreciate it.
Yes. Member Wagner.
Well, Rick stole my thunder. I was going to make the same equation. And thank you for the almost $2.5 million worth of unreimbursed investment into the properties that are only going to be worth less than $500,000. So that is much appreciated. And actually, just this afternoon, knowing about this meeting, I had someone inquire about brownfield opportunities in the village. So I'll be getting that individual connected to the appropriate folks. But it's great to see that meetings like this and opportunities like this continue to spur more engagement on it. So thank you for that investment.
Member Keller.
Well, I'm going to join the crowd and jump on and say to Vicksburg Land Company, thank you very much for the investment you're making in the village. It's greatly appreciated, and it will, and you're keeping the essence of the downtown, which is awesome. And also, happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Well, I'll wrap that up. We'll adjourn the meeting, and I'll just say thank you again myself. It's beautiful looking buildings, and we look to great things coming. So thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Phillips. I'd like a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
Motion to support to adjourn the meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.